going on, everybody? My name is New Yorker, and welcome to very special episode number 9 of Cream Soda Revolutions. Now, if you stuck around through the 40 plus minutes of the previous episode, then you know exactly what I'm going to talk about on this one. If you follow me on Tumblr, then you know exactly what I'm going to talk about. And if you know me personally, you know what I'm going to talk about because I probably haven't stopped talking to you about it. This episode, I want to talk about another Foals album. I did one already, and this is the first time I'm going to double up on a band. But that is because their 4th album, titled What Went Down, just came out a week ago on August 28th. And of course, I got that album. I actually got it on the 29th, so sorry, missed it by a day. But basically, as soon as I could, I got the album, and I listened to it, and it's great. And Foals is one of my favorite artists, so of course I wanted to talk about them, their new stuff. So here we go. You know the drill by now. I'm going to go through each song individually and then talk about the album at the end. Here we go. Song number 1, What Went Down? Being titular, I see. Foals are sort of off and on with that, like Antidotes didn't have a song named Antidotes, and Holy Fire didn't have a song named Holy Fire, but Total Life Forever had a song named Total Life Forever, and now What Went Down has a song named What Went Down. Fun tidbit for you, I guess. Anyway, What Went Down? This is the first single they released from this album back in June, I think, and this is the song that got me excited for the album. This is probably the song that got anyone paying attention really excited for this album. And this album sort of lives up to it in some ways and sort of doesn't in others. I'll talk about that at the end. But this song in particular, one thing Foals said when they were promoting this album before it came out was that this was their noisiest album to date. And now, while that's a little bit debatable, this song is definitely their noisiest song to date. What Went Down is frothing. And it's a term that I've seen used a couple times in reviews for this, and I think it's a fantastic word to describe it. It's frothing, it's rabid, it's noisy, and it's energetic, and it's filled with just pure emotion. It's not really angry, it's not quite like lustful or anything like that. It's not sad, it's just emotion in general, sort of. It's very primal. And I will say I have really one complaint about this song. The song is very, very well done, I have to say. In a vacuum, as a single, it's fantastic. I wish they had an album version of the song that was slightly different than the single version. And it already is a little bit different, but I wish there was one more change, and that has to do with my opinion on first song of the album, last song of the album. Is this a great first song? With a minor tweak, it could be an amazing first song. It could, with a tiny tweak, it would be at least on par with Can't Play Dead, which so far has set the bar for albums that I've revealed, you know. And this song has the potential to be at least on par with that, if not better. At the beginning of the song, there's that synth sound. I don't know what it is. It's just one note. And then Yanis comes in. I buried my heart in a hole in the ground. Boo doo doo. That's how the song starts. Here's what I would have done. Have it be just the synth, right? Yanis doesn't come in yet, and then for that part, have it be just the bass. So it's doom doom doom. Do, 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 and just do that a few times, because then there'd be a little bit of a build to it, you know, and it's something that I prefer, having a little bit of a build, and like all it would take is about like 15-20 seconds of additional time added onto the song. Foals can do that. The song's only 5 minutes long. They could make it 20 seconds longer, you know, and then, in my opinion, that album version of it would be like a perfect starting song. The way it is, while I do appreciate the album version is a little different than the single version, it I don't know. It's just it's fantastic in a vacuum, but as the first song of an album, that tiny tweak would make it amazing. My only other complaint is that it's a little bit disingenuous to the rest of the album, especially compared to Foals' track record with starting songs. Like on Antidotes, what was it? The French Open was a pretty good indication of what you're going to get into for the rest of the album. Not necessarily for Foals now, but for Antidotes, 6, 7 years ago, yeah, it was. Again, on Total Life Forever, Blue Blood does a fantastic job where it's like, here's how Foals' sound has changed since Antidotes. Also, expect every song basically on this album to be longer and be a builder. So basically, it's building up in sound and intensity for the first N minutes. And then right at about the minute to go, minute and a half to go mark is when it hits climax, right? That's what in the very least, the vast majority of the songs on Total Life Forever do, and that's what Blue Bloods does. On Holy Fire, Prelude is fantastic, Again, same sort of thing as Blue Blood, where it's like, here's how we've changed. We're a little noisier. We have a few more influences. We're pulling further away from Antidotes, and it's also a good starting song, I have to say. It has more of a build to it and everything. But then here with What Went Down, stylistically, it's not a very great indication of what the rest of the album is going to be like. It's decent, but my problem is What Went Down is more of a change. Like the song What Went Down is more of a change from Holy Fire than the rest of the album overall was. But anyway, that's enough about the first friggin' song. Next, Mountain at My Gates. Mountain at My Gates. The other single that they released beforehand. A little more on par, I guess, with Foals as far as their track record is concerned. Also a very solid song. It's similar enough in style that it's not disruptive. It's a good second song on the album. Foals are very good at having fantastic energy for the first few songs. Some critics say that then their energy usually drops off by the third or fourth song, and it's not quite as powerful. But I mean, I figure you have to do that anyway. You have to have a slower song by the third or fourth song anyway, so what's the complaint? Anyways, I like the lyrics, even if they are a tiny bit cliched, which I guess is one complaint about the album as a whole that I could give. But again, I'm not going to get into that. I like the drum part. I've got to say, I don't know his name, James or something like that. The drummer really came into his own on this album. I've always liked the drums on Foals' songs and on Foals' previous 3 albums. I've always liked it. And I like how he's evolved stylistically and how, I don't know, how he's become a better player for sure. I mean, his technique is still kind of shit. Like, he still sits way too low. But anyways, I do really like his playing, and I feel like on this album he really came into his own as one of the star members of the band. Like Yennis, the frontman, has always sort of stood out, but now the drummer, again, I don't remember his name, I'll put him in the dump, but now he's sort of gone up to being on par with Yennis. And Mountain at My Gates helps to exemplify that. Really cool drum part. I like how it goes into halftime right at the end, or double time, or whatever it's called. I think it's double time. Right at the end, how it speeds up. That's such a perfect way of ending the song. Really well done. Next, Birch Tree. I like Birch Tree. Not everyone likes Birch Tree. I like it. Some people complain that it's not as powerful as the first 2 songs. I'm like, yeah, your point. What's the big deal with that? Birch Tree is a little more indicative of where they've come from. It has a little more of the guitar work from like Total Life Forever, for example. Not quite Antidotes, like it's not quite math rock, but it's more of an older style of song for them, especially in the guitar. Works very well, though, I have to say. And I don't know. I like this one in particular because it's sort of like, while the first 2 songs, yeah, are very powerful, I very much so appreciate how this one's kind of more lighthearted. you know. So this is one that I frequently think of when I'm not listening to the album, just as much as What Went Down in Mountain at My Gates, you know, just as much as some of the highlight songs on this album. Birch Tree is up there for me, but for a different reason, you know, because it's a little more carefree, it's a little more just general fun, you know. Next, Give It All. Give It All is weird for Foals. It's not a weird song. It's a fairly straightforward song for the most part, but it's weird for Foals. Firstly, it's almost a love song. Yanis doesn't write love songs, not in the traditional sense. Like, the closest thing that I can think of that they've previously done is Red Sox Poogie, which I've talked about on here before. And Red Sox Poogie isn't like, I love you, baby. Red Sox Poogie is describing the feeling of being in love, or at least thinking you're in love, you know? So I mean, Give It All is sort of almost actually a love song. It's almost actually like, you mean the world to me, baby girl. Not quite, but it's in the same ballpark, which Foles has never done, which is unusual. The other weird thing about this is that this is a very stripped down ballad, which Foles has done, but never in the middle of the album. It's a teeny bit jarring where it is in the album. I mean, it flows out of Birch Tree pretty well, but if you know Foles, it like because I'm very familiar with Foles, it sort of took me off guard a little. And if there's one final complaint I have about this song, it's that it kind of feels like an ending song for an album. It wouldn't work as well as the actual last song in this album, so I'm glad that it was song number 4, not the final song. But it has that sort of vibe. It has the same sort of vibe to some degree as Moon, which was the final song on their previous album, Holy Fire. But all of that being said, I still like this song. You know, I do like Give It All. I appreciate the lyrical difference compared to some of the other stuff, although I will say Foles' lyrics have been progressively getting less cryptic, which is in some ways a good thing, because on their first album it was like, what the fuck is he saying? What does that mean? But it has gotten to sort of a critical point right now where they shouldn't really get any less cryptic or it'll ruin something. But Give It All does a good job as one of their less cryptic songs. You know, it's not short, but it kind of feels short in a good way. You know how like the slower a song is, the longer the runtime can be, and it'll still feel the same length. Like if you have a really fast song and it's 2.5 minutes, you still felt like you got the same amount of song as a ballad that's say 4.5 minutes. Give It All does that very well, where you still feel like you got the right amount of song, not too short, not too long, even though it is almost 5 minutes long. Not long by full standards, but still. Good song. Excellent ambient use of synth on this one. Next, Albatross. Now, if Birch Tree is sort of a callback to Total Life Forever, Albatross is kind of a callback to Antidotes, way back to 2008. I will say, not necessarily a great thing, but Albatross is a sick song, I have to say. It is really cool. The fact that it's such a callback isn't necessarily a good thing, but I think they pulled it off very well. Albatross is cool. Albatross is another example of him being Yanis, using sort of tried and true metaphors, which again is a little disappointing, but I do kind of like how it's not necessarily you're flying high above everything and stuff. You know, it's not really like cookie cutter, how there's this albatross thing around your neck apparently, and also sky, but you know, like he does shake it up. Weird chord progression. Weird chords are used on this song, which I like. You know, it makes it sound unique, and it doesn't sound bad. You know, you can use weird chords just for the sake of using weird chords, and then it just sounds like shit. And this song doesn't do that. otherwise, it's cool, you know? It's almost, even though it's weird, it's almost par for the course for Foals. You know, like it isn't a huge standout in the album, but it's still solid. Like I have to say, as far as I'm concerned, Foals has yet to release a bad song, including the songs on this album. Um, so I mean, Albatross is cool. It's just not as standout as some of the other songs that they've done. It is really cool, and again, it is kind of a neat callback. Next, Snake Oil. Now, remember how I said that What Went Down is a little disingenuous to what the sound of the album is like? Snake Oil kind of is the exception. Snake Oil honestly doesn't quite sound like Foals, or at least what Foals has done prior, which is a good thing. You know, I've talked a few times on here about evolution of a band's sound, and I feel like Snake Oil is a nice step outside of what we've come to expect from Foals. You know, as far as style is concerned, not as far as like quality is concerned. My only major gripes with Snake Oil though would be personal artistic choices. Like I would change perhaps the arrangement, perhaps the like how many bars a certain section is or something like that. But aside from like minor artistic changes like that, I think the song is very well done. Again, it's the other really heavy song on here. Not as instantly memorable and not as powerful as What Went Down, but it's slinkier than What Went Down. Like this is the song that really, Snake Oil is a great name for it because it sort of slithers and it's greasy, you know, like it snake, even if not necessarily lyrically, musically, it is like Snake Oil. Very, very smooth, very almost bluesy in its execution, not in a bad way, in a good way. Again, it's an interesting development that one thing I like doing with Foals albums is I like seeing what songs are an indication of where they're going. Like, for example, Holy Fire had Providence and Inhaler, which are indications of where they were going into What Went Down. And they were. They were a very good indication. I wonder if Snake Oil is an indication of where they're going to go after this, if they're going to get a little bluesier. I would be cool with that personally, just because of my personal tastes in music. I'm not sure if critically that would be handled very well, but we'll have to see. Next, Night Swimmers, another one that really showcases what the drummer is doing. Though I did see one review where the guy said that the drummer is basically just hitting as many things on his kit as he could to try to make up for something. I don't know. There were some harsh reviews for this album. Some people got very critical with this album. But anyway, Night Swimmers. This one's kind of in the same boat for me as Albatross. I like it more. I like the drum beat. I like what he's doing with this one. Or was it Albatross that they were saying that? I don't remember. I like the drums. I like what he's doing with it. The rest of it is sort of in the same kind of boat as a couple of the songs that they've done with Holy Fire, where it's kind of a bit of a dance tune. Not quite, but it's kind of close. Can't believe I just used the word tune. However, it is sort of in the same boat as Albatross for me in that it's not an incredibly memorable effort by them on this album. You have to understand I've only had this album for a week. You know, I've only been able to dig my teeth into this for a week. Whereas every other album that I've talked about on here, I've had months to talk about. Especially every other Foals album, I've had months to talk about. In the case of one of them, years. You know, I've had antidotes for years now. But all of that being said, Night Swimmers is good. Okay, like it's not quite a dance tune, but it's again tune, but it's close enough that you know I want to move to it. It's fun to move to. You know, it's a little rambunctious, but it still has a little bit of that slinkiness coming in from Snake Oil. It's also got a little bit of dirt and grime to it. It's a fun time. I'll go with that. It's not complex. It's not groundbreaking, but it's a fun time. Next, London Thunder, another of the slower, not quite a ballad, but close. This one is I'm going to be honest, London Thunder is the one song, probably more so than any other on here, that I've really got to listen to more, like a lot more, to really determine my opinion on it one way or the other. As of right now, my opinion is it's good, but it's not the best Foals have done on a slow song. That may change. I didn't think Milk and Black Spiders is particularly memorable the first couple times, but now it's one of my favorite songs, period. You know, I didn't think Afterglow was particularly memorable the first couple times, but now it's one of my favorite songs, period. You know, like some Foals songs, once you know them, that's when you really appreciate them. Kind of like some directors, you know, like some directors, their movies, once you know them, that's when you really appreciate them. Same sort of idea, and I feel like London Thunder is going to be that song on this album, but the jury is still out. It's a solid ballad, you know, or it's kind of a ballad. It's on the edge, but if we're going to call it a ballad, it's a solid ballad, which again, because I don't like ballads, means it's a good ballad. Not just solid, it's very good. Same sort of thing as Give It All, though, where it sounds kind of like the final song of an album. Except London Thunder caught me for a little bit of a loop because it's near the end of the album, so I wasn't quite expecting a song that sounds like it could be finishing the album. So I wasn't looking at the track list, but this song came on and I was like, whoa, is the album over? It's been barely any time. And I had to look and see that no, this is song 8 of 10, not song 10 of 10. Anyway, next, Lonely Hunter. This is another of the, I guess, kind of weirder songs on this album. I'm gonna be honest, Lonely Hunter is... It's cool, but I can't quite explain why it's cool. It's kind of like a less enthusiastic version of Same Ol' and New York Kiss, which I've talked about. Both of those songs I've talked about on here, where those two songs, I really, really like them, and I don't have a good reason for it. This song, I think, is cool, and I like it pretty well, but I don't have a good reason for it. Like, I don't know, it's fun, it's a bit energetic, but not, like, super passionate. It's... I don't know. It's tough to describe this one. I've got to say it's tough to describe this one. Ultimately, I feel like London Thunder is going to be another one of those ones where I need to listen through it a bunch of times to really appreciate it. Which I'm okay with, you know, like Foals is good at doing that with me, you know. Foals has been good to me so far, so I'm all right with that. Which leads us to, finally, A Knife in the Ocean. Now, as far as final songs in an album is concerned, Foals has been good. I think Tron is a fantastic song. Again, it's one of my top songs on Antidotes, maybe my favorite song on Antidotes. Tron is amazing for a final song. On Total Life Forever, What Remains is a great final song. Like, I kind of like listening to their albums out of order just so that What Remains is the end. Moon, great song. I have to say, Moon is strengthened by Stepson being in front of it. This is all on Holy Fire that I'm talking about. But Moon is a great final song, and it's a final song that also promotes looping, either of Holy Fire, or again, I like to put Total Life Forever on right after Holy Fire, because Moon goes into Blue Blood really well. But again, great final song, strengthened by Stepson being in front of it, but still great. And now A Knife in the Ocean, a fantastic way of ending this album. Foals always knocks it out of the park for ending an album, and always knocks it out of the park for beginning an album. Although, again, minor tweaks with what went down. That being said, A Knife in the Ocean is fantastic, passionate, full of feeling, slower but not quite a ballad. I love the drum part. Like, it's something that I was surprised a few times by what the drums are doing in this album in a good way, and this is absolutely the highlight of that, of being surprised by what the drums are doing. It's just, I don't know, it's hard to describe it. It's definitely hard to describe it. It's kind of visceral. It's very self, how do I word this? It's very much pulling from a deeper self, from pulling inside of Yanis. It's again, it's emotional. It's great. It's like honestly, A Knife in the Ocean is a good way of describing it. Like it's very wave y, by which I mean like that sort of constant, inevitable, but not necessarily dangerous turmoil of waves out in the ocean. So the ocean is a very good bit of symbolism for this song. And that leads me to the end of the album. That is the 10th and final song. So I'm going to talk about the album as a whole. I'm going to say complaints first, and then I'm going to say what they did well. I'm going to get my nitpicky complaints out of the way first. Number one, why is the name of the band and the name of the album still in the top left corner? Holy Fire did that. You have to move it. You changed the font slightly. You had otherwise the same thing. Like, you got to move it. Put it at the bottom or something. Come on. Guys. Because it has the exact same sort of album style as Total Life Forever and Holy Fire, Antidotes even more so now looks like the unwanted stepchild as far as the album art is concerned, which I like. They continued with the water theme by the looks of it. I'm not entirely sure what is going on the What Went Down album cover. Like, there's a person who's sort of like on their hands and knees or something like that. They're probably filled with despair because they're really dark. But to me, it looks kind of like they're either on the coast or like in the rain. I'd like to imagine it's in the rain to sort of continue the water theme that they've had. Totally Forever, the album art is a bunch of people underwater. And it looks like they're in like the ocean or a lake or something like that, because it's definitely not like a pool. And then Holy Fire, it's a bunch of people on horses, like on the shore coming out of the water. So I'd like to think What Went Down is a person fully on shore, but it's raining, so that you can sort of continue the still water, but getting further and further away from the ocean thing. I don't know. Anyway. And lastly, stupid nitpick. Why are there only 10 songs? It's supposed to be 11 songs. Every previous album had 11 songs, if you don't include bonus tracks. Come on, what the hell? Put in another fugue or another Like Swimming, This album could benefit from another 49-second song that... Come on! Come on, guys. Put in another one of your tiny instrumentals. You guys love doing that. Make it 11 tracks, damn it. Anyways, so... actual praise and criticism for the album as a whole. I'm going to talk about actually... I will do, as I said, what the negatives were and then what the positives were. And I'm going to get out of the way. I don't really have a music geek for this week. Because number one, it's a special edition, and special editions don't need them, even though this is only a special edition arbitrarily. And then number two, because my music geek would be evolution of sound, again, evolution of a band's sound, and I've already talked about that. So, negatives with this album, well, really there isn't really anything this album did wrong. Again, What Went Down was a little bit disingenuous as for what the rest of the album is going to sound like, as in the song. Sorry. I hate titular songs for that reason. Am I talking about the song? Am I talking about the album? The song, What Went Down, is a little disingenuous. And then, again, the standout highlights were at the beginning of the album with What Went Down and Mountain at My Gates, and then the very last song, A Knife in the Ocean, whereas previously they've been sort of scattered throughout the album. Again, it may be that on the 30th listen, London Thunder or Lonely Hunter suddenly stand out to me as just fantastic pieces of music. Maybe that will happen, but having listened to the song pretty well at least once a day for a week, it hasn't happened yet. That's all I'm going to say. Really, I feel like the big... Well, let me say this. Is What Went Down a great album? Yes. Is it a fantastic album? Kind of. Yes and no. It's great. It's not necessarily fantastic. If you weren't a fan of Foals, What Went Down isn't going to make you a fan of Foals. If you're not a fan of Foals, I imagine it's because you haven't heard them because they're so goddamn good. But if you're not already a fan of Foals, What Went Down isn't going to convert you. Total Life Forever, or more likely Holy Fire, is the album that's going to convert you. And I guess really the problem with What Went Down, because it's fantastic. I love it's not fantastic. It's great. I love the different emotional points in the album. Overall, every song is at least very good. Some of them are amazing, some of them aren't, but they're all at least good. It's a good album, and it's a lot better than a lot of other albums out there. Here's the problem. Foals have been on the precipice of being the best guitar band in the UK. The best ones, because they're from the UK, they're from England, I'm pretty sure. And they have been poised to be the undisputed kings of guitar music from the UK. Beating out stuff, other stuff from there. Like they've already sort of beat out Block Party and Kasabian and stuff, but there's always sort of been a little bit of, are they really the best, or has it just been sort of a fluke? So let me describe why you may see reviews for this album that are like 6 out of 10 or something like that, when really the album is better than that. I'm not going to give it a number because I don't give numbers, but the album is better. It deserves more than a 6 out of 10, but I'm going to explain to people who aren't fans of Foals why this album seems to routinely be getting 6 out of 10 reviews from critics. Although I've seen all over the board, 6.5, maybe 7 is what I'm usually seeing. Here's why. Antidotes was really good. Total Life Forever sort of elevated them from Antidotes, where they could say, we don't have to necessarily do math rock, we can just do good music. Holy Fire elevated them from that, where they're like, not only can we do really good music, we can sell our really good music, and we can put different influences together. We can get dirtier if we want to, we can get dancier if we want to, we can get artsier if we want to. What Went Down was expected to be the next big step up for them. That would be like, by the way, we're the best in the UK, suck it, And it wasn't. It wasn't a step back, but it was sort of more of... It was sort of like a continuing on. Like, the best analogy that I've come up with for this, and I haven't heard an analogy that was as good as this, so go self for coming up with this. It's sort of like being an Olympic athlete. They came out of playing their sport in college, which was Antidotes. Then they went to, say, the minor league in Total Life Forever. Then they qualified for the Olympics, let's say, with Holy Fire. But then What Went Down was supposed to be them taking gold. What Went Down was supposed to be them being the undisputed champions at the Olympics. And it wasn't. It was just sort of them qualifying for the Olympics again. You know what I mean? So like, while everyone, well, maybe not everyone, but the majority of people who cared, wanted What Went Down to be the album that would elevate them, that would take them to the top. They're already doing really, really well, and that would make them the undisputed champion. It sort of just kept them at doing really, really well. So I feel like reviews of this album that give it like a 6 out of 10 are sort of unfair, because really it's, as far as your expectations for the album were concerned, it's a 6 out of 10, when really in a vacuum it is better than that. Again though, as a fan of Foals, I will acknowledge the album is more for me than someone who isn't a fan of Foals. All of that being said, in the very least, check out What Went Down and Mountain at My Gates, and if you're into slower or more emotionally songs, check out A Knife in the Ocean. They are really good. Should you necessarily check out the album as a whole? Honestly, I would recommend you check out Holy Fire first. If you really like Holy Fire, then check out this album. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend this album to someone who's completely blind to Foals, if I'm being honest. So ultimately, it's a really good album, but we were kind of expecting them to totally, undisputedly thrash the competition with this album, and they didn't. They just maintained, which isn't a bad thing, but it's not an amazing thing either. But that is all my time this week. Again, I don't have a Music Geek this week, but that's okay because this is a special episode. Also, my Music Geek would have taken another 10 minutes probably, so at least I managed to make it slightly shorter. Feel free to expect, for the most part, regularly scheduled programming starting in the next episode. And really quickly, I just want to say my uploading is going to be changed somewhat. You may have noticed the previous couple episodes were uploaded sort of at weird times compared to usual. Normally, I upload them very, very early in the morning, my time at least, on Fridays. Like on my time, it's usually about like 1:30 in the morning on Friday when I upload it. But it hasn't been the past couple episodes. Previous one was on a Saturday because I'm dumb, and the one before that was like, I don't know, 4 in the afternoon on a Friday. And expect more of that. Expect them to come out middle of the afternoon, Friday evening. I'm still going to try to get them out on Fridays, but my schedules have changed. I used to have all the damn time in the world on Fridays. Like, I used to not have to get up on Fridays until noon for class, okay? Now I'm going to have to get up on Fridays at 7 in the morning. So I'm not going to have time to be able to put them very early Friday morning. So it's just going to be whatever I happen to be able to do it on Friday, probably going to be in the evening. So sorry for any inconvenience if my schedule for Friday is kind of nuts right now, but it's going to be changing because there are some scheduling conflicts. So I'll let you guys know, I guess, if that changes. Maybe I'll end up uploading on Thursdays or something instead. But thanks for listening, as always. Thanks for tuning in. I've been New Yorker. This has been What Went Down. My recommendation for when you should listen to this album, very simple. Daytime, bright and early in the morning is a good time. You know, like wake up to What Went Down. I'd be cool with that. I hope you'd be cool with that. Thanks for tuning in yet again, guys. I'm going to see you in the next episode, which again will be regularly scheduled content. Good night, everybody.